Domo arigato, we got ourselves a new roboto. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a servant spotlight for what is undoubtedly Liz's final form, Mecha Eli-chan Mark 1 and 2. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. Now, on to Liz's stats. Mecha Liz has a max HP of 10,901 and a max attack of 9,997. As a 4-star alter ego, there is only one other servant that she shares her class with, that being Passion Lip, and they both have the exact same HP stat, although Passion Lip does have slightly more attack. Compared to the other 4 stars overall, Mecha Liz has very low HP, but her attack is a lot higher than average to compensate. Mecha Liz has the typical offensive stat spread. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Innocent Kaiju rank EX. It grants her between 5 to 10 crit stars per turn for 3 turns. It also increases her defense for 3 turns between 20 and 30%, both depending on level. Her second skill, Overload Kai rank C, increases her NP gauge between 10 to 20% depending on level at the cost of 500 HP. And finally, her last skill is Final Eli-chan rank C, which removes all of her defensive buffs as a demerit, but in return increases her NP strength for 1 turn between 40 and 60%, and increases her crit strength for 1 turn between 40 and 60%, both depending on level. As for passives, she has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases her debuff resist by 17.5%, and Item Construction rank B, which increases her debuff success rate by 8%. Taking a look at her deck and Noble Phantasm, Mecha Liz has a full Buster deck with Quick Art, Buster, 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 and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm Breast Zero Elizabeth deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 and 1000% damage modifier depending on level. It also removes all of their defensive buffs and decreases their defense for 3 turns between 20 and 40% depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her Quick card hits 4 times, her Arts hits 3 times, her Buster hits twice, and her Extra Attack hits 4 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.90% and a star rate of 9.7%. Her 1 Arts card does have very good NP gain on it, but because she has a triple Buster deck, her overall NP gain is poor and inconsistent. Similarly, she does have poor star gen for the same reasons. This time around, we get not 1, but 2 welfare servants with our Halloween event, sort of. Basically, you'll get to pick between either getting a copy of Mecha Liz Mark 1 or Mecha Liz Mark 2 at the end of the event. But fear not, because both servants are exactly identical gameplay-wise. Same stats, same skills, same potential. So whether you pick Eli-chan Mark 1 or you pick the good one, this spotlight's got you covered. But regardless of which Eli-chan you favor, the first thing you should notice is that this Liz is much more offensive than any of her previous incarnations. She has a whopping attack stat for a 4-star at nearly 10,000 and a full Buster deck akin to a Berserker. Her skill set is also very heavy-handed. Final Eli-chan grants her a 60% buff to both her NP damage and crit strength, at the cost of any defensive buffs that she may have. The 60% buff to NP damage is massive. It's the strongest pure NP damage buff in the game. And 60% crit for a turn is nothing to sneeze at either, especially when her deck is mostly Buster cards. The demerit on this skill is not as crippling as you would think either, because the skill will activate even if you don't have any defense buffs. So as long as you activate this skill prior to buffing yourself with any defense buffs, you're not going to suffer any drawback. Speaking of defense buffs, Eli-chan does pack one herself in her first skill, Innocent Kaiju. This skill gives her a moderate 30% defense buff and 10 stars per turn. Innocent Kaiju is a surprisingly strong skill. Even though a 30% buff to defense and 10 stars may not seem like much, the key is that both of these effects last for 3 turns and the skill itself has a short 5-turn cooldown. Which means for the majority of any given battle, Eli-chan gets the equivalent of a free 30% damage reduction and a max limit broken 20-30. This can be especially strong on crit teams since it gives Ellie a degree of self-sustainability where you don't have to overly rely on a good star generator. And finally, Overload Kai makes up for her own lack of NP gain by giving her a 20% NP charge at the cost of 500 HP. 500 HP isn't much of a hit, especially if it's a trade-off for NP charge on a servant who otherwise struggles with NP gain. You'll want to invest in Final Eli-chan first because of all the firepower that it provides, followed by Innocent Kaiju for a bit more durability and crit consistency, and then Overload Kai last because it doesn't scale especially well. Eli-chan's Noble Phantasm is a single target nuke that removes enemy defense buffs and lowers their defense. This is an incredible Noble Phantasm for both its damage and utility. Given her status as a welfare, it is especially easy to NP5 Ellie, which means that this Noble Phantasm is going to deal a lot of damage, especially when paired with one of the strongest NP damage buffs in the game. And from a utility standpoint, removing any enemy defensive buffs is of course very valuable against servants, and slapping them with a defense down makes the rest of the attacks in your chain hit that much harder. Buster Brave chains with Liz are especially strong for that reason, so make sure you always lead with your Noble Phantasm. When it comes to dealing damage, Eli-chan does reach Kaiju levels. As an alter ego, her class is tremendously important because it means that she has class advantage over riders, assassins, casters, berserkers, and later on, foreigners. The advantage this gives her is twofold. One, it means that she's very versatile and can be brought along for many different scenarios and boss fights since she does additional damage to half the servant classes in the game. And secondly, she has the advantage of being able to fill in for offensive assassins and casters. Good offensive assassins and casters are very rare and sometimes limited, and Eli-chan can do their job very well. In fact, an NP5 Eli-chan's Noble Phantasm hits significantly harder than NP1 King Hassan or Ilya. So if you're new or free to play or just lacking in good assassins and casters, Eli-chan provides immense value when you're facing rider or assassin enemies. Another big advantage she has is her lower cooldowns. This means that she's able to star gen for herself quite well despite her low star gen rate, and your NP buff should be available anytime your Noble Phantasm is up. She even has some minor team utility thanks to her defense buff removal, star gen skill, and defense down debuff. If this were an RPG, Eli-chan's points would be heavily invested into strength. But of course, being so one-sided comes with its fair bit of downsides. Eli-chan's Noble Phantasm gain is poor due to her deck, and she's definitely a servant who depends on her NP to deal most of her damage, which can lead to some slow starts. Her NP charge skill is also underwhelming. 20% isn't much unless you're a farming servant, which she definitely isn't. She also has no Star Gather buff, so if you want to use her as a crit servant, she can be heavily inconsistent despite her Star Gen skill. And of course, no hard defense and low HP means that she's very fragile and must be protected, while the demerit on her third skill makes it considerably harder to support her with any kind of defense buffs. Team comp for Eli-chan is simple. She's a brute force buster servant through and through, so all you need are servants that can support her either through direct damage buffs, star generating, or servants that can keep her alive via healing and hard defense. For buffers, you're going to want servants like Fuma, OG Liz, or Shakespeare. Fuma is an excellent star generator, and he can also provide hard defense with his evade. Liz pairs well with herself because of the short cooldown defense down and double charisma, which helps out your non-NP damage tremendously without having to rely on crit RNG. And finally, Shakespeare provides an additional NP charge and a strong buster buff if you want to maximize your NP damage. As for healers, some good pairings include Brynhilda, Nero Bride, and Maj. Bryn not only has a good heal, but a huge crit star gather buff for Eli-chan, covering two of her biggest weaknesses. Nero Bride likewise has a heal and later on a full 30% NP charge, which can allow Liz to NP from 50%. And Masha's defense buffs pair perfectly with Ellie's, just be wary of that timing on your third skill. Eli-chan has two Bondcraft essences. Mark 1 has Electrogica Diagram, while Mark 2 has Gigantic Guardian. In either case, the Bondcraft essence increases all ally buster card effectiveness by 20%, but lowers their debuff resist by 20%. A 20% buster buff is great, but that demerit isn't. Instead, you're going to want to use craft essences that bolster your buster card effectiveness without the demerit. So use craft essences like Limited Zero, Glide Ruby, Brave Hero Eli-chan, and Aerial Drive, which we get with this event. If you wanted to make a more distinctly crit-based team, then I recommend using Victor from the Moon, Joint Recital, Talk on the Hot Sands, or Seal Designation Enforcer. Victor of the Moon and Joint Recital give you more overall damage if you have a good star generator on the team, while Hot Sands and Seal Designation Enforcer are better if your star gen is limited. In the future, be on the lookout for Starry Night. It gives good crit and buster damage while also starting you off with some NP charge. Overall, Mecha Eli-chan is one of the best free servants we're getting. She has the advantage of being a very rare and versatile class, which is going to help out new players and free-to-play players tremendously. Her damage output is up there with the 5 stars thanks to her tremendous buffing, and she makes for a good buster crit servant if you lack one. On the downside, her heavy offensive focus does leave her defenses very low. She can be inconsistent due to her lack of star weight, and it can be difficult to charge her NP, which is her biggest source of damage. But all in all, she gets an A- from me. Yes, she is very one-dimensional, but most of the time, power is all you need, and her value is hard to deny. Without a doubt, Mecha Liz is best Liz. And those are my thoughts on Mecha Eli-chan. This was a hard grade to give because Eli-chan certainly has a lot of flaws, but despite her abundance of weaknesses, I think her overall versatility due to her class and just sheer firepower make her one of the best welfares from a practicality standpoint. Especially since most players don't have an Ilya or Sanzo or King Hassan just lying around their Chaldea. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, do check out the spotlight I did for Osakabe Hime, the event 5-star, linked both on screen and in the description. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. So Brony out. Later.